Hi there, welcome back to our video fly tying series that we do every week. I'm Steve Worley, owner of the Worley Bugger Fly Company and one of the guides. Today I'm going to be tying the polar minnow. So this is a pattern that I came up with a few years ago to fish quite a bit in the spring for big trout and bass. So a lot of streamer patterns that you see, aren't typically tied this size. So a lot of people are under the impression, a lot of fishermen, especially that the bigger the fly, the bigger the fish, and sometimes that's not always the case. Anytime that there's a lot of minnows around from salmon spawn, trout spawn, whatever kind of fish had been spawning, produces a lot of minnows, and fortunately that becomes a big food base for fish. So we fish this pattern a lot in the spring for both smallmouth on the lower Yakima and over in the desert basin, and then we also fish it here in our home waters, the Yakima. So let's get started and I'll show you the polar minnow. Okay, so let's get started here with the polar minnow. I've loaded a Komodo K10 wide gap hook in the vise, and put a thread base on there down the shank, and applied some lead eyes here in plain micro. So what you want to do is just make sure that those are tightened down good. Do figure 8 wraps, and if you want this hook to ride up, you can build it. You can build it, a couple different ways. You can build it with the eyes on the top. If you prefer to have the hook riding up, you can put the lead eyes on the bottom. I tie them both styles, just so I have a kind of a variety. And it's good just to put a little bit of glue on here. You can use UV glue or Zap-A-Gap, whatever you like, super glue, and get those eyes kind of bound up in place so they're not moving around on you. Zapper with your light, and work your thread and get your thread wraps there right back behind the lead eyes. The first thing that you're going to do is grab a strip of synthetic polar fiber. It's somewhat like craft fur, but it's a little, the taper on it is a little bit better, I think. I mean, I love craft fur for synthetic, for building streamer patterns. The nice thing about it doesn't retain a whole lot of water, so your streamers really, get pretty easy to throw, especially on days when you're doing a lot of streamer fishing. You don't get tired from, throwing big, rabbit strip type streamers. So it's a really nice material to work with. So the first thing you want to do, though, is you want to make sure that you brush it out and you get all that under fur out of there, so you can see what comes out of it. You don't want that tied into your fly. So take your brush and just hold both tips. Just get it worked out. You can see has a nice taper to it. It moves really, really good in the water. Just irresistible. So what we're going to do is you're going to lay it up here on top, kind of get your spacing of how long you want your pattern to be. And we're going to bind it down right back behind the eye here. Tighten that down nice and tight. This is gel spun thread, so it's super strong. It doesn't have any give whatsoever. And work that thread right in front there. And then we'll tie it down. in the front, and then work your thread back to the back behind your eye there and cut off your excess. So you should have your first patch of polar hair should be running off the front of the eye. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take it and split it in half to form the first part of the body. These flies don't have to be real big. Of course, it's a minnow pattern, so. And then, so you should have half running off the back and half running off the front. And then we're going to take our next color of polar fiber, which I like this gray for minnows, you know. But you can vary the colors, you know, for whatever you like. So cut a chunk of gray. Then you're going to want to do the same thing. You're going to want to brush it out. Get all that under fur out of there. Just hold on to it. And again, lay it up on top, and you want your tips to be just about the same as your white tips there. And you're going to take and bind that down, pull tight. Chop off that back piece there, and just work your thread forward. We'll bind that down. Get it so it slides up over the top of those lead eyes, and you're going to want to make a couple of thread wraps and pull it tight, and then back again behind the eye, and then we're going to pull it up over the top. And that will form the top of the minnow. So it has a nice taper to it, and when this gets wet, it just moves like crazy and breathes. So it looks like it's, you know, actually swimming in the water. You will get a lot of like little tiny fibers that will stick out, so you can take this great little cutlery tool here, just heat it up, press the button. If you get anything around that eye, it's a smaller hook, it's a size 12, so you want to keep that eye or hook exposed so you can get your tippet in there. And once you got that, then we'll make a couple of half hitches here, and we're ready to tie in our next step. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to want to do is get 3 or 4 pieces of this polar flash, kind of get it up alongside your body here, do a measurement, and then wrap it inside of your thread, and then mount it right alongside the body. And then again, pull it up, and then just wrap it in. And if it's If the fibers get too long, we can trim them. Just try not to trim the taper on that minnow. And if it kind of splays out, it's not a big deal, because it's our next step's going to pull it. It's going to pull the fly, all the flash into the body. You know, so it has that flashy kind of look that a minnow would give when it would be swimming through the water. So get that good and tied in there, tied off nice and tight. And then the next thing that you're going to want to do is have a dubbing loop tool. Okay, so I just happen to have one built in on this bobbin that I have. So you're going to want to form a dubbing loop. And we're going to take this Ripple ice dub. And we're just going to want to take and we're going to want to lay it in here in our dubbing loop. And you don't need a bunch, but this is gonna form the back of our collar here. So get your dubbing in there, and when you're ready, go ahead and spin your dubbing loop, pull tight, and you'll see that form like so. And then take and pick out any of the fiber that's gotten kind of bulky in there, hasn't gotten captured. And we're ready to wrap. Pull all your fiber all back and your flash, and then start from the very back of your thread base there, and then just work it forward, and we'll cover all that thread where we've been working so it gets hidden. And then cut off your dubbing loop, get that excess thread out of there. And you can lay a half hitch. Make sure it's all tight. And I'm going to lay one more right in there. And chop your thread. So it should look like this so far. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay down a little bit of Solarez here on the base, just to strengthen it all up and make a little bit tighter fly. Just blast it with your light. Get that glue dried in there. Okay. And then the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a little egg spot on here with your glue gun. And I like to use either red or orange. Both are good colors. So just put a little egg, throw it on there, get it laid in, where it's just like a half circle, and then you can kind of spin it to dry. Takes about 15 or 20 seconds for that. For that glue to start cooling down and start forming. You can just spin it in your vise. And then if you get a little bit too carried away with it too, you can just heat it back up, kind of clean that eye out right around there, just so you can get your tippet back in there. And then if you feel like your flash is a little long, you can chop that, get her all tweaked, and there it is. That is the polar minnow. So great minnow pattern to fish. You can tie it in a variety of sizes and colors, but I've had great success with this fly in this size. So thanks for watching.